Want to learn to write chapter books? Then you've come to the right place. I'm Tonya Duncan Ellis with another episode of Write This, my author interview show, and I am pleased today to welcome Kashmira Sheth, who will be talking to us about writing chapter books. She has a successful series, the Nina Soni series, and I became acquainted with her when I was participating in a highlights workshop on chapter books, and she is a treasure trove of information on chapter book writing. So we're waiting for her to join us, and we'll get started on the interview, learning all about chapter books. I see some people popping on. Thank you guys for coming. Kashmira, we were having a little technical difficulties getting her on, so I hope she can figure out how to do this, and I'm going to send her an invite and see if she knows what to do, because she's never done a live before. To her a second ago, so hopefully she can join on with us for this interview on chapter books. And when I participated in the highlights conference with her on chapter book writing, I got so much great information from her on crafting chapter books, plotting them. So I am excited. Okay, so I see her here. Let's see. So Kashmira, I've sent you an invitation to join, and you just need to click on that. I'm going to resend that. So you click on the invitation. I've sent it to you. And once you click on that, you'll be able to share the screen with me and be here. So I see that you've joined. Thank you, Michael, Brittany, everybody. I see Shamar Knight Justice. Thank you so much for coming, and we are so excited to see you. So Kashmira is here, and it's saying she's unable to join. Now you need to be joining on your phone. So if you're on your phone and you're going on as we were talking about, you should be able to join, because I got a message that said she's not able to join, and I don't know why. Okay. Let's see, I'm sending the invitation. So I sent you the invitation, and you should be, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
I know. Technology is something, isn't it? Yes. Well,
you're good at it. Hello, everyone.
Yes, hello. I'm so happy to see you, and so happy to join in.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Tanya. And thank you, everyone, for joining in.
Yes, and you know, I get so many questions, Kashmira, about chapter book writing. We have a lot of people who are very interested, some who follow my page who write picture books, and they're interested in learning about chapter book writing. So your suggestion to have this as a topic is very timely.
Oh, great.
Yes, yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell people who aren't familiar with you a little bit about you.
Well, I immigrated from India when I was 17. So I spent my childhood there, but most of my life here. I studied microbiology in college, and did my master's and worked in my field for a while, but I always loved literature, and when my children were young, I started reading with them because I hadn't read books, children's books, growing up there. So it was really very enjoyable to talk about the books, and we were very excited about all the old books that we shared that they actually brought home from their classroom or from teachers or from friends, saying, "Oh, Mom, you should read this. I'm going to read it. You want to read it?" So anyway, after reading all of that, I thought about maybe sharing my experience, my journey as an immigrant, coming here. And so and they were young at that time, so I wanted to write a children's book. And my first book came out at that time. And after that, I've just started writing, and I write kind of everything, picture book, middle grade. And my last project been writing chapter books. So.
Okay, and I didn't know you write picture books too, yeah. But I'm familiar with you through your chapter book series, and this Nina Soni series is hilarious. Huge, and I just love it. It's about a family of the parents were immigrants, are they?
Yeah.
And they're like first generation, so just their experiences. And your humor is so funny to me. You have kind of like a humor that I really enjoyed. And I love this. So tell us a little bit more about it.
So this one, I had this idea. My children's, childhood was, very different because it was in a Midwest, in a small town that compared to, not small town, but not a huge city, but compared to mine. And so I wanted to I had a lot of memories about their childhood, and I wanted to just kind of view them in the story. And I thought about this young girl and her sister, because that's what I have two daughters. So, just thought about writing those kind of stories. And actually, a lot of these stories, some of the incidents are taken from their real life, like the one you were holding up, Nina Soni, Sister Fixer, building a dam. My older daughter did do and flood the street. So, they were taken from some of their real childhood experiences. So I wanted to write about something about that. And I wrote my first book, and I sent it to my editor at Peachtree, and she really liked the voice, and she thought this could have a potential as I thought about it writing as a series, and she agreed with it. So
now, when we talk about chapter books, how should people approach them, or what do you think about when you come up with chapter book ideas?
So I think the chapter book ideas, any story start with is what the story is going to be about. But we have to be, the stories is going to be stories, not just one story. Because say middle grade or YA, one story, and there is an arc, and then it's done. But this is, these are the stories that kind of keep going on and on. So each story has to be complete, but still, a room for another story, another story, another story. So I think I thought about it. What's this story going to be about? So this was my first one, Nina Soni, former best friend. And it's Nina and her sister, growing up in Midwest. And it's going to be about their relationship, but also friendship, because at that point, friendships are, very important. And also their immigrant experience, because they are, like you said, first generation Indian American, and it's going to be a little bit different than some of the other kids. So that was also part of it that I wanted to weave in. And I thought about having that kind of story. So I think you have to think about, what is this story going to be about? Say you love animals and you want to write about an elephant, a character. Then you think about that. But what is this going to be about? Mm-hmm. What is this? And then if the elephant is going to be your star here, Nina is the star of the story, then, where does it take place? So the place is important, because what happens in the story, if Nina Soni's story, like I said, was in the Midwest, and the type of life they live, versus if they were in New York City, say, right, or in San Francisco, I think all those would make a very different kind of atmosphere, and what they would do, or what kind of experiences they would have. Or if they live by a beach, then there would be a lot of that. So say the elephant story, if you have an elephant, the elephant it's a baby elephant, does he live in the zoo? Or is he, born in zoo there? Or is he in African savanna? Or it's in India? You have to think about that where the stories, are going to take place. And more important in this story is because you're going to come back to the same place again and again. Oh. So that's a very important thing, to kind of have that in your mind before you start your first story, the series.
Chapter series, they kind of have the same setting through each book.
And you can tweak that. One thing you can do is, of course, a home life and a school life, right? So with the children, book, you can do that part. Or you can have them go on a vacation. Right. Debbie Machiko's, book with she has done a series, and her protagonist, Jasmine Taguchi, goes to Japan. So you can take that and give it a little bit a different thing, but your characters are the same kind of. So, but yeah, but you really have to think about the environment they grow up.
Now, one thing that struck me when we were at the conference together at Highlights talking about chapter books, we talked about there's kind of common elements with your characters, like they say the same things, or how do you kind of recommend people map that out, like a saying they have or different things they do?
Yeah, so I think that these books need continuity. If you're writing, say, 3 middle grade chapter books that are, about the same character, they have to have some kind of continuity. Your reader should pick up a book, even though they can read it on their own. They don't have to read one after another, maybe even, but it should feel like, oh yes, I know. If they have read one, they should know that character. Somehow it should come through that this is the same character. It's not like one day she's very different and the second day. So how do we put that? It's like their expression. It's something they may say, or some nervous habit that they're doing. What about they just, every time, they're doing something that kind of people recognize it instantly. So right. Their idiosyncrasies, or their, in Nina's book, she likes words. So she's always like putting words and explaining what words mean, because she loves words, not just the spelling of the word, but just the word and what it means. Or she likes to do mental math. So, I try to weave that in everything. So one day it's not like she's struggling with what is 5 times 3 times she knows, very complicated, math. So
right.
You have to keep it consistent.
I was wondering too, when you talk about like character development, so in a middle grade, they may have a bigger change in their personality and character, but do they have that in the chapter book?
So in the chapter book, they do learn something, because you don't have your character like flat through. So I think Nina Soni, in each one, she has this grandiose ideas, or she worries about former best friend. She worries about her friend not being her friend. Or in Nina Soni's Sister Fixer, she thinks, well, I could just make my sister stop singing because her sister likes to sing, and I can change her. And then she realizes she can't really do that. So there has to be something that kind of ties that character with the other you have about her or him. But also there is some growth, there's some understanding, there's some recognition of the outer world, how it fits with her or him. And that has to be there.
Now, how many books do you have in this series?
I have 6. So here is how publisher does something that kind of stands up. So all this book kind of have the same size. This is she thinks she's going to be the master of the garden, but she is not. She realizes there are lots of other things when you garden. It's not that easy. But they also have the same size and trim size and everything, the covers, the pictures. So that's the way, publisher do that. These are all paperback of the other books that I just wanted to show you. They're a little smaller, but the same kind of concept. If you have these, you can, oh yeah, you recognize that. And you want that. You want people to recognize this is came out last fall. And this one, The Perfect Hostess, just is coming out now. So, but you see it all kind of, they also do the same things as people recognize. So just like your character, you have to do something that makes this a series.
Right. So it has that same branding, all of these.
Right. Same branding. I feel like these stories are sort of like beads in a necklace, they have to match somehow. That the string is your character kind of goes through every one of them, but the story has to make sense, because like a bead has to hang together. It has to make sense as far as your character is concerned, and the whole world. So whether it's you have parents, or maybe if it's in the wilderness, maybe some other animals with your elephant or whatever it is, it has to make sense and carry that, you know.
Right. So that's cool. Now, what are the age, the typical readers for the chapter books?
I would say somewhere between 7 and 10, but it could vary to 6 and 11 too. It's individual, you know, their life experiences and stuff. But yeah, I would think that 7 to 10 is, you know, once they become independent reader and they want to start reading. And sometimes the younger one, like my 5-year-old grandson, he reads with his mom these books,
Oh.
you know, because yeah.
He likes to read. Is any of it from his mom's life, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is my younger daughter, so there are some things that, you know, has taken, you know, my younger one was exuberant and kind of sometimes drove her sister crazy. And the main, I think the one thing I say is when you write it, no matter what culture or what, those are specific things. The emotional part has to be the same, right? How the siblings react, you know, how sometimes the older one gets frustrated with the younger one, how sometimes younger one gets, you know, very discouraged because he or she can't do what the older one does. All these human emotions, or worries about friends, or worries about parents even sometimes, you know, missing somebody, all that part, the emotional part, I think is our human journey that we want to highlight that part. That's the core, that's the soul of the story, I feel like.
Right. Now, how long are chapter books in general? How long should we make them?
I think that's a very interesting question. Usually it says around 10,000 words or so. Mine started out, the first one was 14, the second one was longer, and some of them are longer, some are a little shorter. But sometimes publisher wants only certain, like make it 10 to 12,000 only. And you know, just keep it like that. Sometimes they're more flexible, depending on the type of books. Mine was more flexible. She said, just write as long as it takes to write. But I think most of the time, I think there are some parameters that you need to work with. And
right.
You may want to just look into it a little bit more.
Yeah, if they want to do these, because I think they're like about, like you're saying, and that's maybe about 100 pages or.
Yeah, right. And also they are, Tonya, they are also for certain, are for much, you know, the younger one, like if 6, they are much shorter than they are, you know, for a little bit older, you know, older readers. So she's in 4th grade. So, you know, 3rd grade or 4th grader reading, that's then if the books are for like 1st grader or 2nd grader, you know, they're
right.
shorter. So.
Now, any other thing to add with or advice to give for those wanting to write chapter books?
I think you have to think about at least 2 or 3 books idea about it. You may not want to write it because you want to not spend time writing it before you know, but you really want to think about it. So before, of course, you think about your character setting, all these things, but also some specific stories, you know, at least 3 stories, and then write, you know, the synopsis of those stories so you have it clearly. So if somebody likes your first story, or even just the first idea, and say, what's the second and third? You don't go, oh, I haven't thought about it. You have that. So I would recommend that if you're thinking in terms of a series, then think about that. Other important thing in this books is how your character, like, why should your reader care? So there is a heart of the story, but how you put it in. So like she said, humor, or if it's adventure, or if it's some kind of, you know, let's see, if there is a story that has a very strange emotional part of maybe finding a ghost or something like that, how will you carry that into other ones, you know? Because that could be one story, but do you have that? Or you have made your character strong, so the next time that character is going on something else and using some of the tools from that ghost story into the second one, so that it kind of, your character is the same in a way,
Right.
and able to solve something else, some other puzzle or something. It doesn't have to be a ghost story then.
Now, what about side characters in these chapter books? Do they need to be is there a certain amount you need, or?
Well, I think we all work with somebody else, right? Or our lives are intertwined with other one. So I think you have to think of who are going to be, like your main character is there, but who are going to be really supporting those characters. In Nina Soni, I had her sister, younger sister, Kavita, but also friend Jay, who lives, on her street and who's in her class. So he's always there in the story, even though in a different ways. Sometimes she's jealous of him, sometimes, she's not, but he's there. And her parents, they're always there, and some friends from school. So you want to have them because we all have certain people that we interact. Also, the relationships you can then develop. So from one book to another in a series, that's important. Like if you have a relationship with your sister certain ways, then it's there in different books, or brother, or however, if you have several siblings.
Right.
How's that?
Now, have you written any other series, chapter book series besides Nina Soni, or?
No, this is the first series. Yes. Yeah. So
tell us about some of your other projects.
Well, I'll show you, let me bring it. So I have a few picture books. One is called Tiger in My Soup.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you had that.
Yeah, I have about 5 picture books and different things. I'm working on a middle grade novel that will come out next year called I'm From Here Too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It's about Indian American, again, youth, and a 13-year-old, and it's in verse, so it's a little different. So my first novel in verse.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. So that's I'm excited about it. It will have few spot illustrations, and but it's a novel in verse, and I think next June or July. So that's my next project.
Now, start writing in verse, or how did you approach that?
So I my first love was poetry. When growing up, I really enjoyed poetry, and growing up in India, I had to learn 4 languages. That was just, everybody had to. So, there was a lot of literature, but I always was gravitated towards poetry. And when I wrote my book, some of my books that, I get reviews or people say it's a lyrical. So I thought I would start, but more than that, I think I felt like the protagonist, my main character, I think he would write in poetry. Usually, a lot of times I think like the boy story, why would it be? But this is a Sikh boy, and he is so influenced by his religious upbringing that they sing the Gurbani, their Bible, the kind of thing is more of it's set in the ragas, Indian ragas, and they traditionally sing it. So I would think that he would have that kind of way to tell his story, more in a lyrical way. So that kind of made it like, yeah, he should be writing in that, form, because that's all in a first person. So of course somebody, can look at it and say, yeah, I can see that. He would write that.
Right. And when is that coming out?
Next summer. So
I'm going to look for that. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
I love books. I really am looking forward to that one.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, do you have question answers or anything, or do you have any more questions, Tonya?
Well, just to wrap up, If someone is looking to write a chapter book, what are some of the first steps you would suggest they take? Say they've been writing picture books and now they want to move into chapter book. What do you suggest they do to get started?
So the first thing I think is check out a bunch of chapter books from library or get them and read, because that's what I just, when I wanted to write this chapter book series, I just got lots of chapter books and started reading them. So you get the idea. So get, not just one chapter book from one series, but 2 or 3 of them. So you get the idea is how it's written and how it's developed, like over 2 or 3 books, the characters. So that is my biggest thing. Then just jot down. So you say you already have some character in your mind, or after you read it, you're inspired. Oh, I want to write about this. Then start making notes. And then, jump into it. Think about 2 or 3 stories. If your character is interesting to you and you can bring it out, those interesting points, whether it's humor or whatever idiosyncrasy they have, and some of the relationship with the other character, then you just start thinking about the stories then and what you want to tell. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Wonderful advice to get people started, and reading those books for me has been very helpful. Even when I started writing picture books, I got hundreds of picture books,
right,
and just them to get a feel for that. So sounds like very sound advice.
Okay.
And
okay.
can people reach you if they want to connect with you online? How can they find out about your next projects or keep up with what you're doing?
Well, I am kind of spottily on Instagram, but I have my website, and I will put my books there. Kashmira Sheth .com is just my whole name, but or they can write me email at kashmirasheth@gmail.com and just say that this is from Tonya's workshop, because I don't want to there are a lot of some other things coming up. So, but yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You can reach out. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's so good to have you here and good to talk with you, and you're so knowledgeable. And check out her books, guys, if you haven't read. If you want to learn about chapter books, the Nina series is a very sweet and just funny and a great example of chapter books if you want to learn the craft of chapter book writing. These are great places to start. I want to check those out. Okay.
Thank you, Tonya, for having me.
Yes, everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you episode of Write This. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.